Picture it. It's your draft night. You're locked in. You got your cheat sheet by your side. You're zigging while others zag. You're reading the draft room right. You're letting the draft come to you. You're making savvy, confident picks. And in the blink of an eye, the starter rounds are done. Suddenly, it's the 9th round. Your core players are already locked in. Your league mates are starting to drink more and more. But you're just getting started. You're going hunting, scanning the fantasy football landscape in search of league-winning upside. Whether it's the QB going outside the top 20 who's destined for top 10 numbers, the quote, boring wide receiver who plays every down on a top offense, or a veteran who, in the sunset years of his career, still finds himself in a very fantasy advantageous situation. Hitting on flyers late in your fantasy draft can turn a good team into an absolute juggernaut. And that's what we're talking about in today's video. What's up, everyone? I'm Matthey from Stokastic.com, and today we're bringing you 4 must-draft late-round league winners. You're going to be changing the landscape of your entire league with these picks and getting one step closer to that fantasy championship. And make sure to stick around to the end as well, because we got an awesome offer from Stokastic and our friends at drafters.com. Let's get into it. At number 4, let's start with a quarterback. Matt Ryan is essentially free in fantasy drafts, and he's my favorite combination of floor and ceiling in the late round quarterback tier. For the 5th season in a row, Indianapolis has a new signal caller under center. But going from Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan is a much bigger upgrade for this passing offense than people realize. Wentz ranked well below average in passer rating and accuracy from a clean pocket. He ranked 32nd in the NFL in catchable pass rate. He was struggling to do very basic things at the quarterback position. Meanwhile, Matt Ryan was above average in passer rating last year, 9th in clean pocket accuracy, and top 15 in catchable pass rate. Beat reporters have been saying the same thing all summer long. The passing accuracy is noticeably different, and while the weaponry outside of Michael Pippen is still somewhat unproven, the Colts have enough playmakers to be an effective passing offense. And they'll likely need that passing offense more often than they did last year. They ranked top 5 in positive game scripts. It allowed them to run the ball down teams' throats with Jonathan Taylor. A harder schedule in 2022 and just plain old variance likely pushes that game script number closer to league average. I'm expecting the Colts to pass about 3 times more per game than they did a year ago, closer to the volume Ryan had in Atlanta. And while it's definitely murky outside of Pittman, who will soak up a majority of that passing volume, the combination of Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, Ashton Dulin, and Mo Alley Cox, while not household names by any stretch, could absolutely be problems for defenses. These are young, athletic players with a ton of speed, and Ryan should be able to consistently hit them in stride for chunk plays. Ryan is currently quarterback 20 in average draft position, but he's been a top 10 fantasy QB in 50% of his seasons since 2016. And he's essentially free if you're playing in a 1 QB league. If you're playing in a superflex format or 2 QB format, he's one of the best values in drafts. And while sometimes, even in a 1 QB league, I prefer to have an elite quarterback on my roster, Matt Ryan is set to smash his ADP-based expectations. Number 3, George Pickens. George Pickens is about to be a thing, people. To some, he might look like a wide receiver 3 on one of the worst offenses in the NFL, but that's not giving this prospect nearly enough credit. I get it, Pittsburgh might be, at best, a league average offense this year. That is, if they figure out the quarterback position. But whoever it is out of Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky who starts in week 1, they are going to be throwing the ball to George Pickens early and often. The Steelers have moved Chase Claypool to the inside, playing the big slot role, meaning that Pickens is now the starter in 2 wide receiver sets. And even beyond the fact that the Steelers have a long history of finding round 2 and round 3 receivers ready to contribute day 1. Anybody who's followed the college football or recruitment scene over the last few years won't be surprised to see George Pickens already turning heads. This is a 5-star recruit coming out of the state of Alabama who broke out as a true freshman at Georgia. And now he has an every down role on a team that will likely be passing often because they won't be in many positive game scripts. In sharper leagues, I've seen Pickens' ADP start to rise a ton over the back half of August, but he's still a worthwhile pick. He's primed to make an impact right away. In a typical league, I'm taking Pickens right around pick 100, and if I'm really eager to acquire his services, I'm comfortable taking him as the wide receiver 40. That's significantly ahead of ADP. Again, this is a know your draft room situation. If you know people who are plugged in who might pick him, go ahead and take him early. I prefer not to reach, but if I know I have to, I will. Pickens is that much of a priority for me. The year 1 breakout is coming for Pickens in Pittsburgh. Hey guys, I just want to tell you about a special offer from our friends at Stokastic and drafters.com. Are you looking for softer best ball tournaments, a place where we can really show the edge we have in these tournaments? Check out Drafters, the $1 million NFL championship, and the $2.22 entry. Now we're talking here. And we've got a special offer for you today. Promo code Stokastic, Stokastic. If you deposit $20, you will get a free $20 ticket to the Drafters $1 million championship. And if you put in at least 2 tickets to that tournament, you can get a free Stokastic Best Ball draft kit and a free fantasy football draft kit as well, getting you ready for the Drafters Championship and getting you ready for your home leagues as well. Simple as that. Promo code Stokastic, STOKASTIC. Number 2, wide receiver Tyler Boyd. If you looked at average draft position, you'd think the Cincinnati Bengals only have 2 wide receivers on their entire roster. And I like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They're phenomenal talents, and I don't really mind their respective draft costs this year. But Tyler Boyd should not be the wide receiver 50 in positional ADP. He may run the boring routes on his offense, but that offense is still one of the most pass-happy, most prolific offenses in the NFL. And he's always on the field, guys. Last year, he had a 95% route participation rate on a team that threw 33 times a game and averaged 2.5 passing touchdowns per game, and who also happened to have the 7th best odds to be the highest scoring team in the NFL in 2022. Boyd's consistent usage is a rarity, especially late in fantasy drafts. Boyd had 5 or more targets in all but 1 game from week 13 all the way through the Super Bowl. And none of this factors in the upside that Boyd would have if Higgins or Chase were to ever miss time. He's a consistently strong route runner. He ranked 8th in the NFL in average yards of separation at target. And once he got the ball in his hands, he was electric. He was top 12 in evaded tackles per touch. And he's a quarterback's best friend because of how sure-handed he is. Last year, he caught 95% of his catchable targets. Shifty, athletic, every down players on top offenses are definitely the types of players we want to focus on in fantasy drafts. Boyd fits that bill on all accounts. And finally, wide receiver Julio Jones. We've been banging the drum for Julio Jones over on the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel from the moment he signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With Tom Brady as his quarterback, Jones has double-digit touchdown upside in 2022. The 33-year-old Jones could hit at his ADP even if he ends up being just the 4th option within this offense. On that note, keep an eye on the Bucs offense early this season. While they didn't show a major shift in their preseason playing time, one of my big bets this year is that the Bucs move to more 4 wide receiver sets, finding ways to get Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, and Julio Jones on the field all together. But even if they're not participating on 100% of Tampa Bay's routes, players like Gage and especially Jones can find weekly fantasy relevancy very easily within the Tampa Bay offense. They're going to be relying on Jones not only to have a role on the outside, but also to take over some of Rob Gronkowski's vacated targets after his retirement. Brady has already commented on the ease of having chemistry with a player like Julio Jones. And they connected for a nice 20-yard completion in the one drive that they played this preseason together. And I get it, you're allowed to say I'm overweighting one camp quote and one 20-yard catch, but I'm not so sure. Tampa, the most up-tempo, pass-heavy, red zone pass-happy team in the NFL last year, has a ton of vacated targets, paving the way for players like Jones to emerge as every week fantasy contributors. Jones could easily average 7+ targets a game on this offense, and is currently going outside the top 50 wide receivers. And while there's certainly age and injury concerns, all of that is alleviated by the fact that you don't have to spend premium draft capital. He's essentially free. The ceiling scenario is not baked into Julio Jones' ADP whatsoever. And that makes Jones one of my favorite picks in all of 2022 fantasy football. And that's it, guys. 4 must-draft late-round league winners to turn your good team into an absolute juggernaut. Make sure to check out that special offer from our friends over at drafters.com and all the videos getting you ready for your fantasy drafts this season on the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel. Check below for sleepers as well as players who are skyrocketing up draft boards but are still must-draft players for us anyway. Until next time, I'm Matt from Stokastic.com. We'll see you guys later.